Good day. This is going to be a very brief introduction to watercolor technique. And what I'm going to draw and paint here on this small piece of watercolor paper is a very big and decorative pumpkin. The watercolor pumpkin that I create might be embellished or have more detail added to it later on. But right now we'll just worry about the basics. I'm going to take my pencil and draw a pretty big sized oval. And on the top of that, and you can see I went with a darker mark, I'll attach a stem, the stem to the top of the pumpkin. The stem attaches to the body of the pumpkin in kind of an unusual way. I'll make the stem spread out to kind of attach firmly to the top of the pumpkin. And the pumpkin can wrap around and meet up here at the bottom. Now, pumpkins have ribs. You know those creases in the pumpkin? When seen from directly in front, the rib or the line in the pumpkin might go straight up and down. But as you see the ribs to one side, say here the left side, the ribs begin to bow outwards as they wrap around the left side of the pumpkin. And likewise, over here on the right side, the ribs, the lines, bow out to the right, wrapping around the form of the pumpkin. When lines wrap to give you a sense of the form, we call that line following the form. And it's a great way to give a sense of the surface being big and round. Now, you do not have to reinforce in marker, but I'm going to do that. I do like marker, but for you, marker will always be optional. Optional means you don't have to use it. This is permanent marker. In a moment, I'm going to switch and begin using a water-based set of markers. You notice that even if I don't always hit my pencil lines exactly right, I'm not too worried about it because my pencil lines can be erased, and in that way you'll never see that I didn't quite match up with them using my Sharpie marker. Now for watercolor, I need a brush, I need a paper towel, and I need some water. I also need some pigment, some color. And here I have my Crayola water-based markers. And there should be a set for each one of you with the number of your assigned workstation on the lid of the set. So I'm going to use these to add color to my pumpkin. And then I'm going to dissolve the pigment, the ink, from inside the marker and make it behave like a paint. You see there's a point on the tip of the marker, and I'm going to place the point against one of the ribs and drag down. You can see that I can clearly accurately place the orange right next to the black. I can exactly see where the point is. Being able to see where the point is going is kind of helpful. Now I don't have to always stick with orange. You notice that I'm using quite a bit of pigment, maybe one or two big fat stripes of it, using the side of my conical tip. Maybe over here I'll switch so I can see the tip going down against that edge. Or maybe over here so I can see the tip going down against that edge or that rib. Remembering to move the paper to make it easier to see what it is you're doing. Already this is beginning to look like a pumpkin. I believe I might have to add a little bit there and maybe a little bit there. Not bad. Now, I could mix colors, and I think I will. Maybe I'll add a little yellow to the top. And maybe I'll add a little bit of green to the bottom. Green and orange will neutralize one another and give me something like a brown or a gray. And here we go. When you watercolor paint, it's important to control the amount of water in the brush. You notice how I pull the brush gently against the lip of the container. That removes extra water. I can also gently pull the brush against the towel. You see the nice control line that I just made? Dragging the brush or gently moving it back and forth is how you always handle a brush. You never push it, and you never push it down straight into the table. The bristles, the hairs, need to stay straight and gather together at the end in a point. If you ever find a brush that doesn't form a point, do not use that brush. Be sure that every brush you use forms a point when it's wet. And when you store the brush, store it straight up and down like this so it can dry properly. Here I go. I'm going to go with my point. Do you see how I come in from the right side since I'm right-handed? I'm going to dissolve the paint. I can wash out the color, dry out the brush a little bit. See how deeply I go into the original orange to redissolve it. Wash. Let's turn the paper this way. See how I come in with the point so I can tell exactly where it's going to go? If you like, you can leave a little bit of the white paper showing. That kind of suggests a bright light flashing or shining off the surface of the pumpkin. So I'm very careful not to move the brush back and forth too quickly, and very careful not to scrub too hard. I had a little too much water in that brush load, so I took out the water. Dissolving the color, moving it back through the paper. You can see what I have now is a range of orange value from dark to light. So the change of color, the change of value, dark to light, looks very natural as it rolls across the ribs of the pumpkin. So we have line following form. We have the shifting value of dark to light orange moving across the rounded surface. We have at least two techniques now that is making that look more three-dimensional. I'll go ahead and add a little bit of brown here. It doesn't need to be very much. It's a small space, so I don't need much water. That's too much. I'm going to remove water and just add a little brown there, and I'm done with my pumpkin. Now, this is kind of an experiment for you, or better yet, just a way to become familiar with the paintbrush, the markers, the towel, the water, and the watercolor paper. After this, I'll make another video with an assignment that's a little more complicated. This assignment is worth 30 points, but this is only us getting started. It becomes a little more difficult soon enough. And that's all. Now, you try.